friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe and I am super excited that you're here. In today's video, we are going to be talking about interior design yet again, and I really want to start a series on my channel where I kind of take you through my tips and tricks to designing your space. It's important to mention that I am not a licensed interior designer. Now, the reason that's important is because I did work in the interior design industry, but I never got certified. So I am a design enthusiast. I am a home decor lover, but I am not a certified interior designer. That said, I don't believe that you can't learn and love interior design unless you're certified. So I want to share the things that I learned being a part of the industry and make them more accessible to you, because not everyone can afford to work with a designer. That said, today's episode is going to be mostly focused on finding your design style. Now, before we jump in, I do want to remind you to hit the subscribe button and leave this video a like if you enjoy it. It really means the world to me. I'd love to hear about your design style in the comments down below if there are certain pieces and elements that you love. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, my first tip for you in finding your design style is to look around your current space. The reason this is important is because we tend to buy things that catch our eye regardless of whether or not we are catering towards a specific style. Now, if you're a person like me, when I was younger, I had a lot of furniture pieces that I just happened to have. They were either gifted to me or items of convenience, but there were still pieces that I loved or wanted to carry forward into a new space. If that's your situation, try to look for something that you either have bought, and that does not have to be a large piece of furniture, or take in something that you like, or if it is a piece that was handed down to you or an item of convenience, take it in if you still enjoy that piece and what parts of it that you enjoy. This typically works better if it's not a sentimental piece or that is not the primary reason that you like it. It's better if it's a reason relating to style or how it makes you feel. Now, what you're paying attention for is, how does this item make me feel? Or what elements of this item do I like? For example, if I were looking around my home, I might pick out my coffee table and say, you know what, I really like this coffee table. I don't love that it's a faux marble finish, and I don't love the base of it, but I do like the idea of having a stone coffee table. It makes me feel like this place is really chic and elevated. That makes me feel pulled together and sophisticated. So if that is something that I like and enjoy, that leads me to the next step. The next step of this would be to take your item that you have discovered that you actually like, or like a certain element of, and find a way to find inspiration with those elements in it. So if the thing that you like is, let's say, this pot, and it's because it has a dual texture on it, I might look up rooms with a lot of texture on either a search engine like Google or maybe Pinterest, and try and find rooms and spaces with a lot of visual interest and texture. So using the example that I gave before, I'm looking up here living rooms with marble coffee tables, and that shows me all of these separate pins and ideas for a living space with the thing that I like, a marble coffee table. And you'll notice that not all of these are in the same design style. In fact, I love Pinterest specifically because it allows you to look and categorize by specific style, which is really helpful if you kind of have an idea of a style already that you like. But I would encourage you to not use these at first and really just try and take in all the different options and see if there are elements from different pins not categorized by style that you really enjoy. The reason that I really recommend not searching by style at first is because I actually don't believe it's as important to know the typical term or label that your style falls under as it is to know the specific elements of a style that you enjoy. For example, When I was working in the design industry, I would have people come in and say, I really like modern furniture. And that's great. That can be helpful, but there are a lot of elements of modern furniture or modern pieces that fall under that label. For example, some people might say a modern looking room is a really low-backed white sofa with all white walls and very minimal decor. Other people might just call that minimalist, and they might say that modern is sleek silver metals with interesting new shapes and clean lines and ambient lighting, and to them, that might be modern. So modern has a lot of different elements to it. There are a lot of subcategories of modern. The other thing about that is most of the time, you're not just one design style. Most of the time, you have a little bit of this style and a little bit of this style that makes up your personal style. That's what makes us all so unique and our homes so fun and beautiful to curate, and a reflection of our personality, is because you are not just one singular style. So once you've found that one singular item or element that you want to start with when you're looking for your design style, maybe it's the color green, right? Or maybe it's the multi-patterned pot, or maybe it's just the idea of a marble table, whatever it is. Once you find that thing, next it's important to figure out where you are going to store all of your inspiration, all of the examples of things that you like. For me, I am partial to Pinterest. I love Pinterest, and I also use Milanote, not sponsored, but honestly should be. But you can also use a mood board, like a paper or cardboard mood board, if you want to cut things out and look through magazines. I know some people are much more tactile that way. Do whatever works best for you, but do find a place to store all of your inspiration. That's going to be really important because you're going to want to come back to it. Next, once you find your source that you're keeping all of your inspiration in, begin to pull tons of examples. Anytime you see something that you like or really speaks to you in terms of a room design or a particular decor, maybe even art, pull it into your board. For this example, I'm using Pinterest, but I am going through Pinterest, and anything with a marble table that I really like, I am pinning, and I am saving it to a board that says my style. You'll see that I am not trying to be super picky. I'm just grabbing the things that I like and saving them for a later date. One thing to note is that your style will probably change over time. This isn't always true, but I know that I am definitely not the same person as I was when I was 20 years old, and my style has definitely changed, and it probably will change more. But some people, their style stays the same forever, and that's okay too. But just don't be surprised if you have a ton of different styles pinned. That's okay. Once you feel like you have a good amount of inspiration, that could be 20 pieces of inspiration, that could be 500, whatever it is, you're gonna start to curate your inspiration. Now, this is where it gets really hard. My recommendation is start with 5 to 10 pins or 5 to 10 inspiration pieces. This can be really hard, and I get that. And you might have to take several passes at this. And it's okay if there are more than that. It's just that's what I would recommend starting with, because it's not so overwhelming. The more pins you have, or the more pieces of inspiration you have at first, the harder it is to actually translate that into a style. So what I would do is go through and narrow it down. Look at your pins and say, which ones are really calling to me? Which ones do I look at and I want to live there. I want to walk into that space every single day. Or there is something about this that just feels like my personality, or I would feel cozy there, or it emulates the feelings that you want to have in your own space. Take those ideas and save those into a separate area, because it will help you delineate from all the inspiration to the things that are truly your style. And that is what you're gonna end up referencing down the line. Once you curate your small section of pins, what you're gonna do next is you are going to take in what are the similarities between these pins. What are the similarities and what are the differences? So in this example of this mood board that I put together, you'll notice that I point out the curved lines in all of these pins. I point out the white walls that only appear in 2 of them. And I also point out that there is a ton of wood, especially in that medium tone with texture. In fact, there's a lot of texture in all of these pins. Once I know that those are reoccurring elements in the pins that I've selected, that's something to note about my style. I tend to gravitate towards curved edges, rounded pieces, things that feel very organic instead of structured. The other thing that I would note about this is I tend to go for darker palettes. Darker palettes tend to feel moodier, cozier, more closed in. So that's another thing to note, is maybe I like rooms and spaces that tend to be a little bit more vibrant or saturated, or maybe I like them to be a little darker, moodier, but still with an element of contrast because I have those 2 pins with white walls. So maybe I like the contrast there, or maybe I like to have a couple spaces that are airy. Something to note about my style. The other thing that I did is I created a little note next to all of these pins with all of the reoccurring elements in these pins that I could see and notice. These are what I'm going to take forward and apply to when I'm designing a space. Now, if there was something, let's say you had one pin that was completely different from all of these. Let's say I had a pastel Scandi pin in this. What I would say that that means is you really gravitate towards a specific style with maybe a teeny element of this random pin. There are ways to incorporate different aesthetics, and if one pin is just strikingly different, that probably means you need to try and incorporate small elements of that style into the space, because that's what makes it uniquely you. Now that you have this curation of 5 to 10 pins and a list of all of the things that either intersect with these or are different from these pins, you have basically a description of your style. Now, it's important, I would say, to do this over time. And that's because it's going to give you the broadest sense of your style, the things that you currently are liking, but it's also going to be something you might want to redo every year or so because, like I said, your style might change. Now, I do have a couple tips for you in doing this and going through this process. And the first one is I would recommend not to include anyone in this process besides yourself, even if that is going to be someone you are designing your space with. For example, I live with my husband, I love him very much, but we have completely different design styles, and that is okay. And if you guys want, we will do a video in the future of how to design with a partner or with someone else. But the reason you're not doing this with them is because you're taking the time to find your style, and their style will definitely influence you. So you want to take the time to fully understand your own style before you start incorporating and meshing other people's styles. Because if you don't know what you like, they don't know either. It's important to figure that out for yourself, by yourself, I would say. My last tip is when you are trying to specifically find your style, try not to keep your space in mind. And that might seem really counterintuitive. The reason that this is important is because you might start catering towards your current space when you're finding inspiration instead of just letting inspiration take you wherever it takes you and catering towards what you actually like. So you might start thinking, well, in my current place, I can't paint the walls this color, so why would I even save this inspiration image? Well, because you could hang a large piece of art or maybe a tapestry that has that color palette in it and change your lighting. But if you start catering towards your current space, you're only going to be limiting the amount of inspiration that you get instead of listening to the styles that actually speak to you. All right, friends, those are my tips to finding your style, specifically your interior design style. Let me know what other things about design you want to know as we move forward with this series. The goal is for it to be really accessible and helpful to all of you. So let me know what your questions are down below and I will do my best to answer them, and we can work together to make your space exactly what you want it to be. If you liked this video, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. And if you are searching for some more inspiration, all of my socials are linked down below, and that does include my Pinterest. So if you just need some inspiration and somewhere to start, I definitely recommend you go there and kind of dig through it. And that is everything. I'll see you next time. Bye.